A very good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Lasham Daily Briefing for Saturday, the 9th of August, 2025. Start off looking at the synoptic picture. See here, this was yesterday midday, with that fairly open area we had for a fairly pleasant day on the airfield. Running that through midnight last night, very much the same picture. A high pressure to the southwest there, trying to work its way in, but the dominant feature very much being that low between the northern tip of the UK and Iceland. That bringing a series of fronts, particularly this cold front there that was approaching from the northwest. And by lunchtime today, we're expecting that to be around halfway down the country, bringing with it the associated conditions, albeit a fairly weak front. Have a look at the front line on the radar shortly. There's not a great deal on it. But then fairly weak, as I say, clearing through the next day with a fairly warm day to follow on Sunday. So looking at the setup pick then, you can see there is evidence of that front there, not human and not enormous. Quite a lot of wave as well in North Wales and towards up in Yorkshire. But particularly down in our area here, what we can see is quite a thick wedge of sort of high cover, and it's very much present outside the window. We just run that sat pick through, we'll see how it's been progressing. See, it's arrived a bit earlier than was initially anticipated. And with it tracking west, the big part tracking to the east as it is, there's no sign of it clearing with any real hurry. So hopefully that will be not spoiling the day, and we'll still get an afternoon out of it at the very least. The rain radar, very little to look at locally. You see a couple of very, very small isolated showers out towards Wales. If we just zoom out there, you can see the evidence of that front, quite thin towards the southern end, so a very small line of the showers, and sort of combining over central Scotland at the moment. Met Office prediction, they're also recognizing that area. We run that through. See, it's very much tracking to the east, despite shape of the front on the chart. And so really, none of the precipitation from that front is going to be a problem for us today or even into tomorrow evening. It should have passed and dissipated before we get anywhere near us. The Odium observation was being the weekend, there is no TAF, but they were showing 2309 knots, visibility greater than 10, and overcast 3,000, beg your pardon, 4,300, with a pressure of 1021. Farnborough, they do have a TAF in today. It's 210, so a little bit more southerly to it, but 3 knots for the prediction, so a little bit lighter than what Odium were reporting. Visibility greater than 10, few at 4,500, becoming between the hours of 10 and 1, 270 at 10 knots. So no mention really of any overcast there, and their observation earlier on this morning at 20 past 8 local was few at 4,500 feet. So interesting difference there between the two stations. So spot winds then, we've discussed the surface wind, but we can expect to the south 260, 270 around 15 knots, or as due westerly, and to the north 260 at 20. So west southwesterly throughout today. On the ground locally, we can see using windy here, we've got a moderate southwest or west southwesterly flow across the airfield, and we'll be using runway 27 as a result. The local Met Office forecast showing a westerly component of around 10 knots, gusting potentially up to 25 later in the day. A little bit of broken cloud initially, opening up into the afternoon from about 2 o'clock onwards. We should have a fairly warm day, about 24 degrees. Visibility we're expecting to be very good and moderately high UV. GFS, very much in agreement with Met Office there, 24 degrees with a dew point of around 7. So the webcam on the south side looking towards 2XL. That was a picture at just before 10 to 9 this morning. See, that's really quite established. Top cover and it extends, or sort of medium cover, if anything, extending quite far out to the west. We just refresh that to see if there's been much change. A little bit brighter, certainly, upwind, but no sign of blue yet. So we will keep an eye on what's going on and hopefully it clears enough for us to have a good day. And on the point of temperature, we're up to now 15.3 degrees with a dew point of 10.9. Looking at sky sight now, on the left-hand side is an excerpt from the potential flight distance. Quite different to how it looked this time yesterday or even yesterday evening. I think taking into account what that water top cover is doing and really deadening conditions in this part of the country to the north and west of us. Sort of north, a fair bit north of Oxford into the Midlands are looking fairly reasonable still, and they're not exposed to as much top cover as we are. But there is potential still for the day if we look across to the point forecast. You can see, recognizing this fairly thick cloud, possibly even clearing by about 12:30 or 1 o'clock, sort of underneath, but leading to a blue afternoon potentially, with thermals up to 4,000 feet above Lasham, with strengths between 3.5 and 4.5 knots. Wind at a thermal top, reasonably strong in places, but 270, 20 to 25 knots throughout today. Now, if we look at the cloud distribution here on the top meteo, it's not really in agreement with what we are seeing on the other forecasters. So showing at the moment, that's for today at 9 o'clock local, it's showing blue over the top of us, which it very much isn't. It is quite an isolated patch of top cover, but there's no recognition of that really on the chart here. If we run it through our hour by 10 or 11 o'clock, we should have quite a significant amount of cumulus, if this is to be believed, and that continues until around about 1 o'clock where it starts to blow out to the north, but still remaining good to the west and northwest for much of the day, and along the south coast as well, blowing out by sort of 4 or 5 o'clock and becoming blue again for the evening. So not really in agreement with what we're seeing outside and what some of the other models are suggesting, but we will see. NOTAMs, just a few sort of out of the typical group that we have. 10 down on the south coast, we've got an air display that's at Walderton. That's not until later this afternoon, so that's really going to be for any late returners. That's from 6:45 until 8 o'clock this evening. So really, if anyone's motor gliding down that way later on, that's going to be worth keeping an eye out for. 23 just to the east of us, as usual, is Delta 132, the Ash Ranges. And to the north, the 26, there's a BMF fly past at Horsemoor, and that's from surface to 2,600 feet, and that's valid between 1344 and 1414 local. Okay, so I've done the local conversion there from UTC. And just immediately north of that, we've also got West Ilsley there at 29, where there'll be winds launching paragliders to 1,900 feet. Across to the west, crossing out that way at number 19, there's an air display, Moncton Deverell. Again, that's not until later on this afternoon and early evening, so unlikely to be a problem for anybody. And as has been the case for the last week or two, at 31 towards just north of Bristol, we've got a temporary danger area for drone testing in the Severn estuary, and that's from surface to 1,400 feet. We'll move now to the local element of the brief and glider bookings then. So we have one K21 today on the casual list and a K13 on trial lessons. Number 4, SH3 and SH7 are allocated to Silver and Beyond course, and we have fairly limited single seat availability on the Grog fleet. At the moment, there's 3 on the casual list, but we have no instructor, so if there's anyone around who's willing to help out, wants to do a bit of instructing, that would be much appreciated. And of course, the simulator is available as normal. Yeah, wait, dwell, reminder on the Aboyne expedition. Speak to myself if you've got any questions and to the office to book. Then nothing to report today with regards to movements. And in summary, this is a pressure centered to the north of the UK, bringing a cold front in from the northwest. Thick top cover. It's accelerated its movement, potentially clearing after lunch, leading to a pleasantly soarable afternoon. It's moderate southwesterly flow across the airfield throughout today. We're operating runway 27 with cables on the south side grass, and if there is any need for a grid, we'll do that on the 27, the north side grass. I would encourage, because we've had a few very small grids in the last couple of days, we're quite short on people this week, so if there's less than a dozen or 10 or 12 people or gliders, we could just have them on the runway, please. That would make everyone's life a lot easier. As always, please do not land or taxi across the disused runways shown here in red. And there's our airfield set up as has been for the last few weeks now. Winch to the south side, winching off the grass, air towing off the hard, and grid to the north if required. That's all from me this morning. We'll see you out there shortly. Have a good day. Hopefully that top cover clears, and if it does, let's keep it safe.